My name is Fernando.
Hi, Fernando.
We all dream during the night, and you have mentioned dreams many times. But what are actually dreams? What is their function, and do they have meaning in this direct path?
No, from the perspective of this very direct approach, going directly to the reality of our experience, dreams are of no particular significance. No experience is of any particular significance because all experience is made of the same stuff. So a dream, nirvikalpa samadhi, a vision of God, the taste of tea, it doesn't matter. It's all made of the same stuff. But that doesn't mean to say that dreams at a more relative level don't have their value. They do. I'm not an expert on dreams. I usually only use dreams as an analogy or a metaphor. And that's the only way in which I've used dreams in these last few days. But seeing as you ask about it, there are two broad functions of a dream. One is to process residual material that is left over from the waking state. That would be one function of a dream. In fact, we could say there are three functions. That would be one function, to process residual material from the waking state. A second function would be to bring up into our consciousness material from the deeper layers of our own mind that we were not aware of during the waking state, but that we would do well to become aware of. And then the third function of a dream would be to bring content not from the deeper layers of our own mind, but to bring content that lies outside our personal mind, in the universal mind. And these would be the archetypal ideas or images, to bring these impersonal archetypal ideas into our conscious experience. And these are the really luminous dreams whose message is not just about one's own personal, emotional, psychological life, but brings knowledge from the broader medium of mind in which each of our individual minds are precipitated. These are the luminous dreams, the inspired dreams that bring like a universal knowledge that belongs to all minds, but is made available to all minds when it is revealed to a particular mind. It's the role of an artist. A true artist, a really great artist, is not someone who just has access to their personal unconscious. It is a mind that has access to the broader medium of impersonal, universal mind, and whose function is to bring the content of this universal mind into the finite mind and to share it with humanity. Those would be the three functions of a dream. As I say, I'm not an expert on dreams. There may be other functions as well.
Yeah, those archetypes, the way that Carl Jung mentions that a person can have some revelations coming from dreams.
Yes, it is one of the ways that content from the broader medium of mind, the universal mind or pure consciousness in which each of our minds is precipitated, enters into one of our minds, the mind of the artist. And then that artist's mind can then package that content in such a way and make it available to the rest of humanity. That's the role of an artist.
But at the same time, the language of dreams is by symbols, made by symbols. So
yes, because a dream, the language in which we receive dreams is a language that is shared by all peoples, irrespective of our local, temporal, cultural conditioning. Not everybody can speak English. Not everybody can speak Chinese. Not everybody speaks French. So French, Chinese, English, this is not a language that is shared by all minds. So these universal ideas cannot be transmitted to a mind in English. Otherwise, it would not be universal. It would be specific only to the people that speak English. So these universal archetypal ideas have to be transmitted in a language that is shared by all minds. A kind of universal language, that's what a symbol is.
Thank you.
As I said, I tend not to speak very much about that aspects of dream. I just use the fact that we dream. A fractal in nature is a pattern that is seen in nature that repeats on numerous different scales. So what I suggest is that the way each of our individual mind works is a replica of the way the universal mind works. So when we look at the way our individual mind dreams a dreamed world, if our mind is a fractal or a microcosm of the universal mind, and it makes complete sense that it is, after all, it was the universal mind that gave it birth. So it is not surprising that the individual mind is a microcosm of the universal mind from which it proceeded. Then there's a good reason to believe that the way an individual mind works is a mirror, or is a sample of the way the universal mind works. In other words, in exactly the same way that the child behaves to a certain extent like the parent, has many of the features of the parent. This is not surprising because it is given birth by the parent. It comes from the parent. It shares the patterning or the habits of the parent, the mother. Well, likewise, each of our individual minds, it proceeds from or is given birth by the universal mind. And therefore it is a microcosm of it. It is for this reason that I suggest that the way our individual minds dream a world within itself and then enters into its own imagination as a separate subject of experience from whose point of view the dreamed world is known, would be a microcosm of the way the universal mind behaves. The universal mind dreams the world within itself and enters into its own imagination in the form of each of our finite minds, through whose perspective it knows itself as the world. So that's the way I use the analogy of a dream.
Can we say that the source of dreams is consciousness? And since the dream state is here, for instance, in the middle, on this side is deep sleep, and the other hand is, the other extreme is awakened state.
Not quite.
We are closer, in this dream state, we are closer to consciousness, and so we can get some information from it?
No. Take a circle, take a white piece of paper and draw a circle on it. The white circle represents consciousness, just a single, unified, infinite, indivisible field. And now take a third of the circle. So imagine a clock that goes from, a clock hand, the minute hand goes from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That's a third of the circle, yes? And color that circle red. So you now have a circle And 1/3 of it, from midnight to 4 o'clock, is coloured red. Yeah. Now take the second third. You colour the second third goes from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Colour that segment blue. Yeah. What do you have now when you look at the circle?
I have 3 areas.
You have 3 segments, but we've only coloured 2 of them. But because we've coloured 2 of them, it seems that a third white segment appears. Deep sleep is the white segment. It's not really a state. It is pure consciousness. But it seems to be a state in relation to the other 2 states of waking and dreaming. Is that clear? Yeah. In other words, the deep sleep state, a state is something that appears and lasts for a length of time. But the deep sleep state is only a state when viewed from the perspective of the waking or dreaming states. From the actual experience of deep sleep, it is not a state. It is not a state that lasts in time. It is pure consciousness. So can you say that the white segment, which represents deep sleep or the deep sleep state, whichever way you look at it, can you say that that is closer to the white paper than the red area or the blue area? No. They're all, they're not even close to consciousness. All there is to the red segment and the blue segment is a colouring of the white paper. There isn't even something called a waking state or a dream state. From the perspective of consciousness, that is the white paper, there is just the white paper. Consciousness, there are no states of consciousness. Consciousness is always in the same state. It is only from the perspective of the waking and dreaming states that there are 3 states. But from the actual experience of any of those apparently 3 states, there is just consciousness. There is nothing to this experience apart from knowing. You cannot get closer to knowing. You're not closer to knowing in any of the 3 states because you're never at a distance from knowing. You're never at a distance from consciousness. That there is nothing at a distance from consciousness because there's nothing in consciousness other than consciousness to be at a distance from itself. There's no question of being closer to or further from consciousness from the point of view of reality. It's only from the point of view of a temporary finite self, a separate self, that these ideas of being closer to or further from consciousness seem to have validity. And on the progressive paths, these ideas are given credibility. And we have to work on the progressive path to approach consciousness, to slowly get closer. I'm not criticizing those paths, but they're not what we do here. This is the direct path. We're much more radical here. We don't we don't give credence to the belief that there are things or selves or states or entities that are apart from consciousness that then have to approach consciousness and therefore maybe closer to consciousness when you're tasting your food but not thinking, and closer to consciousness when you're in the waking state and the dreams. All those, there's a place for all those ideas on the progressive paths, but it's not what we do here.